The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Steven Sakash here once again with my co-host, Tulio Siragusa. And we've got a special guest today. Are we having some audio problems? I'm not sure, but
when I introduce him, just come back. I think he can't hear you, but he can probably
hear me.
Okay.
All right.
Is it okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. We're good. Yeah, always want to press the magic button.
When you're live.
We can talk for 15 minutes beforehand. You press the magic button, and it's like, here, guys, here's a curveball. So anyway, welcome back to the show, everyone. We got a special guest today. We're going to enjoy this conversation immensely, I know. So we're going to dive into home services. And home services can be deeply personal. When someone invites a professional into their home, they're placing trust in that person, that brand, all the systems behind that service. And that makes empathy more than a leadership value. Empathy becomes part of how businesses can earn trust, support franchise owners and teams, how you can create service experiences that people remember. And today we are going to dive into empathy and how that can impact things at scale. And Tulio, introduce our special guest today.
It'll be my pleasure. Our guest today is Mike Davis. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Neighborly. Mike joined Neighborly as CEO in July 2024. Congratulations, you're 2 years in now. Neighborly is the world's largest home services company with more than 30 brands and 5,500 franchises, collectively serving more than 14 million customers by repairing, maintaining, and enhancing homes and businesses. Before joining Neighborly, Mike served as CEO of Mathnasium Learning Centers, a math-only supplement education franchise with 1,200 centers across 10 countries. He also served as CEO of Valpak, where he helped transform the franchise network from a best-in-class printer into a sales and marketing organization. Mike brings more than 2 decades of leadership experience across franchising, business-to-business, business-to-consumer, digital platforms, media, e-commerce, and consumer services businesses. Mike, welcome to the Bliss Business Podcast. We're excited to have you.
Thank you, Tulio. It's a pleasure to be here. That intro, I've had a lot of amazing experiences, but it did make me feel a little old.
Mike, can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Steven.
All right, great. Yeah, you know, when
We don't get
Tulio's
old,
doing
we just get wiser. That's all.
when Tulio's doing that intro, I'm all, wow, Mike's probably been with Valpak, and now the home services. He's probably been in everyone's home in one way or another.
That's true.
Well, at least 43 million, I think, was the Valpak number. So quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few. So, Mike, so throughout this conversation, I think today we're going to try to get at ways to kind of scale empathy. But from your perspective, why is empathy so important for leaders, especially of like large franchise systems?
Well, most companies are obviously maniacally focused on growth, like we are here at Neighborly. And I think true growth engines are built by a team of believers. And to build believers in that mission of growth and what has to be accomplished, you build believers with empathy, you build believers with authenticity. Those two, I think, combined creates a level of trust, and trust drives care and execution for that mission of growth.
Now, Neighborly operates across more than 30 home services brands. That's a lot of service brands on the one umbrella. So how does empathy help leaders stay connected to what franchise owners, service professional, and customers are actually experiencing? I mean, that's talking about doing that at scale. We want to know the secret sauce, Mike.
Well, not easy every day, but one of the blessings and honor I have is taking over Neighborly 2 years ago. Many wonderful architects before me, including Don Dwyer, who was the original founder, and he created a code of values. And one thing that code of values does is creates a stitch, a piece of fabric through every one of the owners. Many of the owners, the 4,000 plus owners we have, join Neighborly and will tell me part of their decision was that code of values. So having these 15 code of values that are about respect and integrity and how you show up in front of the customer is helpful in creating that common talk track and that common North Star on how we show up, which is, again, a lot of that is based on empathy and listening with intent. What I've done in my tenure is added guiding principles, which is one's how you show up and the other is like what we do. We fail fast. A lot of things that tie back to empathy delivered in execution, if that connects.
Thinking about that,
Absolutely.
that code of values. I mean, a lot of companies may have, some sort of, mission statement, code of values, but really to make those come alive, you've kind of got to audit your business by those, right? And I'm sure, what do you have? 5,500 franchise locations? Is that
we have 4,000 plus owners and 5,500 locations. Yeah.
So this is an immense kind of at scale operation to try and get those code of values showing up everywhere. I mean, where do you even start with that? And how do you make sure that that happens when you're, maybe not able to see every one of those 5,500 locations?
Well, I guess a little bit spiritually and then a little bit practically. I'll start with the boring practically part, which is we actually have language in our franchise agreement around keeping a certain level of net promoter score, because we believe so much of net promoter scores, when you're disappointing a customer, it generally ties back to some sort of empathy moment, speed to lead, speed to their house, even the little things we do, the shoe covers, the mats, all that stuff shows kindness and empathy for the consumer. So practically, it's in our franchise agreement that you have to have a certain NPS to remain a franchise owner here. But spiritually, it's read before training meetings out in the office. It's on posters around all the offices. We have quarterly franchise owners calls where it's noted, mentioned, called out. I do around so heavy communication, heavy frequency of this message, and being honest with ourselves. I have to tell you, when I first got here, I felt like there was a few things I saw that we weren't living up to. So part of it is also being honest and saying, hey, we may be failing 1 and 2, but the aspiration and our work ethic is to get back to delivering. So a little bit of in the weeds. Also, I think it's important, and we strive to not be executives in the ivory tower. I'd mentioned to you the few seconds getting to meet that 2 weeks ago, I was in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. I met with 4 different owners, laying eyes on the organization and the technicians and the training. All of that helps us stay grounded in that those code of values and those NPS scores are all a daily practice.
I love that you've essentially infused neuroscience techniques into the business by repeating, by keeping it in front of people. It creates the belief that drives the behaviors, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's a huge commitment for organizations to do that. Most organizations, they do it for a few months to promote something and they kind of give up on it. So a lot of notes to take for anyone listening. It's a long-term commitment. It sounds like it's a ongoing commitment.
45 years.
Yeah.
I am blessed.
Talk about codifying something.
And I am blessed. I took over after 2 amazing leaders that built this. So again, I get to pour gas on it, which is a true joy for sure. One thing, I had a great mentor tell me, because there are times where I feel repetitive and I can't stand that. I always want to be evolving, growing, something new. And a great mentor of mine reminded me, if it's something important, don't be embarrassed to be repetitive. Because in many cases, frequency and that drum beat is what it takes, as you said, to codify something.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot from some of the bigger, franchises that we've talked about, is that you got to be a little bit repetitive or put the cult in culture in some way where you're really, kind of hammering some of these things. But Mike, you mentioned like 45 years. So what has your leadership journey kind of taught you about that connection between empathy and execution?
I think it ties back to true leadership. I mentioned it, sort of the first thing I mentioned is you have to have believers. And the only way you truly do that is with a carrot. And the carrot versus stick comes from people seeing you walk the walk and being empathetic. Some of those cliches of treating every single person in the organization the same way. I think those are so deep and so important that, again, a different mentor, he never, ever had to even once raise his voice or even act upset, because he led with such kid glove empathy, care, that you just didn't want to disappoint him. And I think over several CEO roles, that just gets more galvanized in me that, and I think, there are a lot of leaders struggle with, can you be kind and deliver excellence? And I think many times kindness just pours gas on execution.
I love that so much. And there's a correlation with raising children with what you're saying. You can constantly correct them, and it's going to undermine their self-confidence, and basically they'll need therapy as adults. Or you can help them believe in themselves and believe in them, and let them go through some trial and errors, but they grow, and then they build confidence in themselves, which is going to serve them for the rest of their lives. Employees are no different. If you show them that you care enough to believe in them and give them a chance and invest in them, they'll step up, because they're adults, they're not kids. And I think a lot of companies fail. And I think part of the problem is that people confuse that if you are empathetic or kind, that slows down productivity or slows down growth. What's your thoughts on that? Because there's some people actually believe that. It's like, oh, that foofy stuff, it's going to slow down things. We got to keep driving forward. But the studies show the opposite happens when you actually are empathetic. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts for those who might think like empathy slows down execution? How do you maintain it and still not slow down execution?
I just don't think there's any direct correlation to accountability and being kind at how you get to accountability. And accountability often comes from being clear, transparent, and walking the walk with everybody. So I have learned in my career, they're just two completely separated. By the way, it does take a certain skill set. You can't be all ice cream sandwiches and fun there. I would say, talking about accountability for 1 second, the number one thing that drives companies is once they get accountability right and compensation for that accountability is when companies skyrocket. So don't confuse, you can have action plans, deliverables, extreme accountability, but how you outline it and how you motivate has nothing to do with actually holding people accountable.
I know.
Yeah, they're just not related. You don't need a stick to hold people accountable. And again, as I mentioned, you need believers. You need believers in your associates, in your franchise owners, in your lenders, in your owners if you're owned by private equity. And you get that by being honest, authentic, vulnerable, and empathetic.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I know we've talked a lot. No, it's good. Yeah, I want to talk about this and this, but I mean, accountability, we've talked about that as, this gives you clarity, as an organization, and that clarity is, I think, a form of kindness in many ways, because
sorry for Stephen for interrupting. We talk about all the time that we use words nice and kind very differently. Sometimes in franchise specifically, franchisors thinking being nice to franchise owners is helpful. We think being kind is more helpful, which is sometimes having tough conversations, but it's being kind, saying, hey, I know they used to say you were amazing, but now you're in the bottom quartile, you're in the middle quartile. You know what that's a kind conversation because it's honest and actually, I think, shows empathy that you care about their business instead of going, do whatever, you're great, you've been here 20 years, you're what, that's not kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing because
it's the scratch I love.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing because, to your point, you cannot help people be accountable. They have to want it themselves, and the only way to do that is to create an environment where they have the visibility, the empowerment to make the right choices and hold themselves accountable because it matters to them. And so, a lot of companies don't create enough meaning, enough purpose, enough understanding on how the role contributes to something greater than themselves. But if you can successfully do that, which with a lot of the things you've talked about, then people will want to hold themselves accountable because they believe in it. They believe in the framework or the mission so much that it's personal. I don't have to hold you accountable. You do it voluntarily. And that's not an easy thing to accomplish. And a lot of companies really struggle with that, except for those maybe that have adopted more self-management type principles.
It's a great point. It is, I would say it's a tricky thing to find in an interview too, that one of 3 or 4 like principal things I look for is this person going to hold themselves accountable? Because I don't want a culture, because again, I think it unravels trust where we have to hold you, right? Like, hey,
it's too
what's
much
going
work.
on? It's too much work. Luckily here, and this is what I thought maybe you were going to, there's so many amazing things to find purpose here. All the work we do on homes that, again, people are, even something as simple as Mosquito Joe. I mean, safety, fun in a yard, to extreme things of water spraying out of places and air conditioning going out. So you can find amazing purpose there. And then you back up. We have 4,000 small business owners for the most part, and you can find massive purpose in making their dream come true. And then, of course, all the personal satisfaction and growth. But we have lots of reasons here to connect what you do to amazing. Yeah, the stories here of the success, people that were technicians 5 years ago, now owning companies, running companies. There's a gentleman that runs $100 million part of our precision garage that 7 years ago was a technician.
Wow.
I mean, and owners, and our president of Molly Maid used to work at a Molly Maid, that his mama, I mean, this company is riddled with amazing purpose stories.
Love it. It's the interesting thing about those purpose stories is that you can have 2 different businesses. You can have one that understands that purpose really well, and you see the energy, you see the, this is kind of more of a living organism of a company, right? And then you can have another company doing the exact same thing that doesn't understand that at all, that is, totally focused on, bottom line over everything else. And people don't see the higher purpose in, shareholder profits or something like that.
Yeah.
But they do see, like you said, helping someone out with like the mosquito problem. What's the higher purpose here? Or, all the different home services that you bring together, trying to articulate that just makes such a huge difference for that ripple effect that we were talking about, right?
Yeah. We 100% believe we are owned by a very large, well-known private equity group. From them to me to our owners, all the way down, our success is 100% dictated by that transaction in that home. That these are sacred places for us, that you, your kids, your significant others, you let us into them. In many cases, as we talked about in stressful moments, that transaction and making a fan there is literally how we, at the most highest corporate level, will have success. And I know you guys do a lot in franchising. Sometimes there's that franchisee, franchisor tension, friction. Here, our mission couldn't be more aligned. If you're amazing in the home and make fans, we'll be successful. Like it's that simple. And what we try to do, I would call it what the franchisor does is we try to create the consistency to help you get in the home. What the franchisee does is the magic to make that person a fan. Like our systems and our SOPs get you to the door. And then the local touch, we have franchisees that are doctors and IT professionals and lawyers and have all these backgrounds, plumbers, whatever. They add their own little nuance to make that magic and fan that then creates this amazing, collection of brands.
I love that you said these places are sacred places. I mean, that kind of defines it really well. I can see across your organization, like if people understand, hey, you're going to someone's home, this is a sacred place. I think about like the bear. If you ever watch that, there's all kinds of chaos. But when they get to the serving people, and this is the sacred place of that, where it all has to come together. And if there's too much chaos, it's not going to happen. But behind the scenes, but bringing that all together into this sacred place. I know I've used that once or twice before with our team, but it is really a way to define it in a way that brings that care, that kindness, that attention to detail that you really want.
And I think you have to have the courage to break away from the box that perhaps an industry fits you in, right? It's home service, but everything you just described sounds like hospitality. So
100%.
you're really in the hospitality business as much as you're in the home service business, except that they're not coming to you, going to their homes. So how do you create an experience where they feel that needs are being met beyond the transaction?
They both understand it's that consumption experience. It's that consumption experience. And there are 17 emotions. There are 17 emotions related to that consumption experience. Half of them are negative, half of them are good. And you want like that surprise and delight, that stuff that really makes that emotional connection in there. Mike, you're about to say something.
You guys, I mean, you are just, you need to come work here. You guys are hitting all the sweet spots. Two of our favorite books that we talk about, Unreasonable Hospitality, which is about, the restaurant hospitality space. Making Fans, the Jesse Cole from Savannah Bananas book. We are in the hospitality. The service we provide happens to be, fixing, repairing. But no doubt, when you go into somebody's sacred home, it is a kid glove hospitality. The number one thing they all want is trust. It's a hospitality. By the way, I love The Bear. I think The Bear season 1 should be a textbook in marketing and hospitality. There are so many moments that are genius. I actually used in one of my keynote speeches the scene where the lady chef is peeling a mushroom and a guy's like, "Why are you peeling a mushroom?" And she's like, "Just so they know we spent a little extra time on it." That kind of detail to me is just genius. One thing I did want to mention, hopefully you don't mind, I'll keep going with something. One of the ways we do that, all our 18 of 19 US brands, we use the exact same sales process called customer. And it hits those positive things. You remember how you said there's, so we are very intentional about empathetic moments with the customer, so they feel and understand we're listening with intent. And what is there anything more than just this air conditioning working that's important to you, so I can make sure I get that done, not just fix this. It's another way at scale. You guys mentioned how do you scale some of this. The other thing using technology is we use a partner named Rilla, R-I-L-L-A, which is a AI coaching tool. So it listens to the technicians as they do customer and then grades them on how well they delivered. Did they talk with speed? I think it actually even covers tone and input. Like the sentiment of your delivery, another way and another tool to scale that kind of energy and feeling through so many technicians and owners.
Amazing.
I love that. I wanted to ask like about some sort of systems and things like that, but that was like a perfect example of how you can help scale that. You've got to have those feedback loops in some way or another in there. If you don't have that, or if you're burying it because you don't want to hear the bad news, that's when you get the scandals happening and all kinds of bad stuff happening. But when you're you've got real intent around your feedback loops. That's the only way you can really kind of fine tune some of these systems into being systems of kindness, right? Ultimately.
Yeah. I really admire how you guys have cracked the code on the importance of context beyond the transaction, because even to your point, your AC might be broken down. Fixing the AC is just a transaction, right? Anybody could do it, but understanding why that's critical or what's going on. Maybe there's a child that has allergies or what have you, and they just won't feel well. They'll even get sick. So there's so much to it. The impact it has on a personal level, and understanding that and validating that as a priority will make all the difference in the world. Now you're not just transactionally fixing the problem. You're delivering value based on a need. And there's a lot of businesses don't spend enough time doing that. We talked about this just a few days ago. It's like, oh, we're just in the, we're not here to save the world. We're just in the insurance business. Well, why not find how you could save the world by being in the insurance business? Because maybe you saved one's world by ensuring, continuity, what have you. So the fact that you guys intentionally elevate all the connection points at scale like that, I mean, that should be a Harvard business case study. Seriously, it's impressive.
That's very kind. The S in customer is search for motives. And the second bullet there is listen for emotional drivers, right? Because a lot of times it's not just the faucet. It's my kid has got X issue, and because of the font, can we solve a real fix for the family and not just the faucet?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's how you move it from transactional into something that's more personal, right? Is meaning. And that's where and when you can do that, that's where you do get that connection, because you're being human, you're being.
And it's possible by design. It doesn't happen by accident. By design, it's possible. And when you codify it, I mean, you have a wonderful case study. We got an audience question. That's a good one.
An audience question.
Okay.
All right.
That's a follow-up to is there a franchise owner story that stuck with you? Someone whose journey reminded you why this work matters? You mentioned a little bit about the technician who became a multi-location owner. Is there one in particular maybe that stuck with you that was like, wow, we do something that's making a difference in people's lives? I'm sure you have a lot of them, but maybe one that really stood out.
Yeah, there's so many. The one I actually mentioned, it's top of mind, that is really emotional to me, is our president of Molly Maid. His mom came to the U.S. from Mexico, was a Molly Maid cleaner, became an owner of Molly Maid. The son worked for the mom. They became the second largest Molly Maid. And fast forward, he went to college, started working here at corporate, and now runs the brand. I'm literally about to cry. I mean, it's just such a wonderful story.
That is the American dream. That's amazing.
All right, help us get him on the show. We want.
Yes, we need to get him on the show.
Michael Silva Nash. He is.
Martha's taking notes.
No, but you mentioned something. You mentioned something at the kind of the top of the show that I didn't want to let pass without addressing, and I think you did show it right now. You mentioned the word vulnerability. As a leader, you're in charge. You said what, 4,500, 4,000 different franchises, and a lot of leaders are kind of afraid to show some of that vulnerability. What do you think about vulnerability as a leader?
I think it's imperative. I think everybody runs harder when they believe that you care. You're one of them. It sounds, you've heard it a million times, but you'll walk the walk with them. And it's the first thing I did. My first national convention here, I joined in July. In October, I had a chance to speak to 4,000 people in the audience, I told them my story, because knowing who you are and what drives you and your background just sets the stage for everything Mike says. Oh, I get a little bit about him as a person, and not directly related, but I think it's important to know that my dad was a plumber. I came from a blue collar household. I worked jobs with him. Like I didn't come from a silver spoon background. Those things are part of showing vulnerability in who you are. And again, once people feel like they can relate to you, have some connection. By the way, the other thing that's hard for owners at this scale, and I do everything humanly possible, is extreme accessibility. That I think 99% of people that reach out to me, I call them back, I text them back, we speak on weekends. I think that's also part of being vulnerable, is just being always accessible. I've had people over the years like, I can't believe you put your phone number on your emails. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, I can't believe you don't. Like, again, I just don't want to ever be hiding behind anything. We talked about it earlier. People get confused with being vulnerable and driving extreme accountability. And I've been blessed from early on, and I think I've refined it, that the two just aren't connected.
I think the one who shows up the most vulnerable is often the most powerful, because you give everybody else permission to just be human. And that creates intimacy. As a leader, the ultimate gift in an organization is to create intimacy. If you can create intimacy, no one can stop you. And the only way to do that is to be vulnerable. It's impossible otherwise. I really believe that. Sounds like
Julia, I agree. And I'll tell what ties, my biggest pet peeve is when I feel like I'm not getting the truth back. And I challenge myself, what have I done to make this audience feel like they can't tell me? Because I know somebody doesn't like this idea. I know somebody, I would say, if it's not,
trust me. Yeah. That hits hard. Yeah, that hits hard. I get it.
It hits really hard, right?
Yeah.
Because you're presenting stuff and nothing's perfect. And when I hear crickets, I'm like, we failed, right? Something isn't working here, where you're not trusting to say, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Because I want it. It drives me bonkers when I don't get feedback.
I get it, because you generally curiously want the feedback, but it's like, it's not a trick question, guys. You can trust. I'm really want the feedback, and people are afraid sometimes. You're like, what have I done to make you afraid? So,
yeah, that's why, I mean, when you get to that,
that's a hard one.
that vulnerability, you're hoping builds that psychological safety in there, so that,
yeah,
you can have that kind of feedback, which otherwise we've seen it in all kinds of companies where, it's kind of fear-based, and these things just get, hidden and swept under the rug, and versus, bringing them to the forefront, which really makes the company better, whatever the problem is. Mike, I want to touch on this and go a little deeper, with a little more time on it than maybe we usually do. But the one question we ask everybody on this show, some form of this, is, what role should love play in business?
Oh, it feels like so much of this is tied together, because vulnerability, empathy, all of it comes back to some connection to some practical love, like love of success of franchise owners, to love of people development. One thing directionally that way, when I got here, we were working on new merchandise, Christmas items that we share with the team and franchise owners can buy. And we added be kind, be neighborly. And it was a small little stroke of, along with business, we're a caring, kind, loving leadership team that, again, is, we have an expression we use is, we have shared insomnia, the leadership team. And that shared insomnia is not a negative. It's a shared insomnia, which is equally tied to the love and focus of success for our franchise owners. And when they're successful, it means the consumer is getting a great experience. And then it means, of course, if you back that up to corporate and our goals, we'll deliver. So I think it's in some form or fashion filled in a lot of the things we talked about today. And again, shared insomnia, I think, is one way of saying a love and passion and a commitment to our franchise owners for their health, their growth. And our second customer would be the end consumer, which if our owners are happy, it makes the technicians happy. And then the technicians are amazing with customers. I don't know why this popped in my mind. Another thing that the love word reminds is something else that we work with leadership to do, which is called emotionally rehire people. And when you emotionally rehire people, it's an act of kindness or an act of love many times, because it's the extra note of thank you. It's the, hey, why don't you leave an hour early? I know your husband just got back from 2 weeks out of town. And many times it's also not an expense. So you can emotionally rehire somebody with not even a material impact to your SG&A goals, your budget goals, et cetera. And emotionally rehire is another version of a sprinkle of love.
I love that phrase.
I love that. I'm taking notes. It doesn't cost anything to say, I really appreciate that you're here, even if someone's been there for years.
I had a boss, a mentor I mentioned earlier. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I was living in LA, and I was going to Pittsburgh to see a playoff game, not a Super Bowl. And he's like, don't we have a customer out there? Like, can't you go ahead and stop by and see Galaxy while you're there, saying like, hey, pay for the ticket? I'll run through, even though I can afford it, it was the expression of that means a lot to you, and I'm willing to pay for the airline or whatever for you. That is a $500 emotional rehire that has me talking about this 25 years later on a podcast.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the shared insomnia idea. It's
I feel that too, Leo. He's describing like that's what I feel is.
It's an elegant way of saying we don't rest on our laurels.
But it's like he just described my nights, most nights. But
I try to make careful, because some people, I don't want them to think it's because we're like freaked out. It's a joyous shared insomnia.
Yeah.
It's like, how do we do more? How do we?
Yeah, it's an anxiety, like not an anxiety, like an excitement of like, how can we do more? Yeah, that's beautiful.
Mike, I want to go back to the love question in a little bit and look at it in this way. Why don't you think most companies, or a lot of companies, don't act with like kindness first, compassion in their general DNA? Why are we? I want to say a lot of companies just failing miserably at this portion. I think there's only like 1 in 10 companies really, if we're being generous, is focusing on it pretty well. But why do you think we fail?
I think what I mentioned earlier, it can be confused with extreme focus and extreme accountability that I believe anybody would ask here. If you ask the leadership team, we have just giant goals, giant aspirations, giant accountability trackers, but you can also do it, again, with kindness. By the way, the last code of value is have fun in the process. So I think that's even a good reminder, is listen with intent and do this and do this and do this, but also have fun in the process.
I saw on your site, you've got those written out, but that one is like, that's all it says is have fun.
Have fun. And it's, I think, bigger. Like, I can't remember. I think it's even bigger.
Maybe bolder. Yeah. No, but it's true. It's like, you can do all these things but then also, hey, have fun. And we've had a lot of business owners too that bring that element up, like also try and figure out how to have fun. Because sometimes it's difficult to get there. I think maybe
it's hard. What we do is hard. So I see there are certain times in big initiatives or headwinds in industries. What we do generally is not easy stuff. So sure is a lot better to do hard when you're having some fun.
Right. I want to ask this question as we come to an end here a little bit differently, because usually what I'm looking for is if anyone remembers anything from this show, like what's the one practical habit that they can start with to help them become more empathetic while also driving good business results? And what do they need to let go of that doesn't serve the higher good?
Oh, that's a
good
good
advice. Like, should do this and let go of this. What would those two things be?
Give me a minute on the let go of, because I haven't thought. Let me give you a second on to do. I think, again, it's listen with intent. Everybody's right from their own perspective. So why do they believe what they're saying is accurate? And once people feel that care, and I guess vulnerability of a, senior leader listening, as you mentioned, I think wisely earlier, Tulio, it opens up such mass communication possibilities. So accessibility, authenticity, just practice, even little things. I'll tell you a couple little things to practice. If you're in an office like mine and there's a desk here and a seating area there, 99.9% of the time when people come in my office, I get up from the desk and go sit over there, because I don't want anything between us, anything at all that's like dividing, boss, not boss, any sort of weird, like immediately go get away. This may sound corny, but something else I started maybe 7 or 8 years ago, which has been pretty powerful, is pick a time on the day. I happen to do 4/26 because it's my birthday, and set the alarm on your Apple Watch or whatever watch. And at that time of the day, find something in the day to be grateful for. And more importantly for me is send a message to somebody saying, thank you, I appreciate it. So be intentional as well. Can be very, very powerful, because when you reach 300 people a year with, I thought about you, I mentioned, that energy doesn't take away from all the accountability and all the pressure, but it does bring people in, creates emotionally rehiring time, it's, in spades.
Amazing.
Mike,
do we want to squeeze in one last question, Stephen?
It's Mike's. It's his time, so
maybe very quickly. We got an audience question.
You've got an audience question. You want?
Yeah, it's a good question. I thought it'd be good. What's next for Neighborly? What we haven't heard about yet? Any new brands, markets, directions on the horizon? We need more companies like Neighborly. More Neighborlies. What's next?
I think the how to get a bit of more Neighborly is our number one initiative, which is just connecting. We have more than 25 million customers in our database. We have 19 brands across 50 states. So we're in the middle of the journey of cross-selling, upselling. So, going back to trust, once a homeowner trusts us, it's our job now to make sure that they know, if you trust Mr. Reuter, we have 17, 18 other brands in North America that also have the same customer sales, roots, foundation, high NPS score. If they don't have a high NPS score, they won't be part of the marketing automation, because we're not going to send you to a bad owner. That part today, we measure in multi-brand customers. So how many of our customers use multiple brands? That is really starting to take off. And the magic of Neighborly, which is coming to fruition, is more customers realize the Neighborly family instead of the independent brands. So that creates more Neighborly out there for, again, millions of households. We have tons of white space for new franchise owners if they want to get in the Neighborly system. So there's plenty of brands, plenty of markets. And once you're part of that, then we'll pour gas on connecting all those dots. I talked a lot about North America. We do have about 15% of our business is ex-US. We have a very similar group of family of brands, primarily in the UK, and 2 large brands in Germany.
Nice.
So more neighborly through communicating, and let all the amazing people that have used us today know that we have more brands that have that same A+, north of 80 NPS, which is like excellent rare air out there for you to use.
So if people want to join you, want to buy a franchise, want to get involved, get to know you more, how can they do that?
Feels a bit salesy, but franchise.neighborly is the franchise site, and neighborly.com is just if you want to learn more about us and our brands. We also have an app that was recently updated, easy access, and we create checklists for your homes. You can see when your next appointments are. You can start storing your receipts. So there's a single easy place so you can know who you used before. There's one number to call and get all the brands. So easy, easy, easy.
Nice.
Mike, thank you for joining us on the show today. Like I said, this is always the highlight of my week, and you can see why I'm talking about this kind of thing with other business owners. Always makes me happy. And so what did we pull today? We had kindness pours gas on execution, I think. We had the emotional rehire. And then at the end there, you said something like everybody's right from their perspective. This is the whole show. There are books that can go deep into this. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I got to articulate and underline a little bit here for people. But thank you for all that. Thank you to our listeners. Great questions. And we will see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.